The question of what's your favorite stage in Smash Ultimate is a bit of a hefty one, considering that there's, over 100 of them. And if you include Stage Builder, that means there's technically, or at least practically, an infinite amount. Not to mention, your answer can vary greatly depending on how you're playing. If you're playing competitively, you might say Battlefield or something, depending on what your character is and who your opponent is. If you're playing casually with items on and whatnot, you might say Gamer or something else chaotic and fun. And if you're just talking aesthetically or based on references to your favorite games, you might say something like Pirate Ship, if you happen to be a Wind Waker fan and or like oceans and stuff. That's always been the case with questions regarding favorites for me. It's not very often that I can choose a definitive favorite that encompasses all or even most contexts. What's my favorite flavor of ice cream, for example? Sometimes I'm in the mood for mint chocolate chip, so I'll say that. But other times I just want something simple like pure vanilla, so I'll say that instead. Stuff like that, But for stages, it is still tricky, but I think there's a stage that comes pretty close to being that all-encompassing answer. That being... what was the title of this video again? Oh yeah, SMASHVILLE. Let's start by looking at the stage from a competitive standpoint. But before that, I want to quickly talk about today's video sponsor, ProtonMail. ProtonMail is an email service that specializes in Swiss privacy with end-to-end encryption, a strict no-logs policy, and it makes sure that all apps are open source and audited. And it's totally free with no ads. And because this is ProtonMail's biggest redesign since it was first released 7 years ago, it has a new focus on ease of use. You can even change up your theme if you like, which is an option I always appreciate. But certainly the key point is its safety. For me personally, as a YouTuber who has to keep an email public for potential sponsor inquiries and such, I get plenty of untrustworthy emails. So having an app that has a great approach to keeping your personal information personal is always appreciated. And it even has its own VPN service that you can then install. And if you're willing, while the normal plan is free and great, you're given extra plan options that can increase the amount of email aliases you have, grant you your own domain, and increase storage space. So you can look around the plans they have available and see what you might want. But again, even the free version does everything the service needs to do, protecting your important information like receipts and conversations, and keeping you safe. So if you want to give it a shot, I recommend you go down to the description and click the link up top to sign up for a free ProtonMail plan, giving yourself a safe and private email service. Thanks again ProtonMail for sponsoring today's video. Now back to the competitive appearance of SMASHVILLE. You've got two ways to play it in Smash Ultimate, with hazards on and with hazards off. Hazards off is what you're most likely going to see in tournaments, and this features a smaller than usual stage with a platform in the middle. Now I'm not too huge on playing competitively anymore, but even now I still think this is just a lovely stage layout. It's extremely simple as all competitive legal stages are, but it's still really effective. It's different from the usual layout of either no platforms or triplats that we see from Final Destination and Battlefield respectively. And if you didn't know this, the stage size itself is actually just a tad bit smaller than other stages, which forces just a little bit more aggression. Considering that this high ground area is in the center of the stage, this also encourages a sense of aggression. At least I assume so, again I'm not too interested in competitive Smash, that's just how I always interpreted this stage layout. And then you've got the normal hazards on variant, which only changes the platform and the existence of balloons. Now instead of being stationary in the center, the platform goes left to right and so on. While I do still like the hazards off variant, this is definitely my preferred way to play the stage. This adds another layer of depth to the simple stage that isn't really crazy but can still shake things up. Now you have to sort of plan around the movement of the platform. And since the platform can extend past the ledge, it has just a little bit more area to move around. But since it, moves, you still have to have decent timing and it's still just a small obstacle to keep things just slightly more interesting. And I quite like that. I think having a game just be about two people fighting is fine, but personally I'm looking for just that one more small layer of depth to a match. Sure, some crazy things can happen from it from time to time, like a really early KO off the side and... well, I think that's it, but nothing you can't really anticipate or plan around, Though of course competitive Smash players don't seem to enjoy this type of stuff, I guess? Actually, small rant. While I just flat out don't agree with people who think hazards should always be off for SMASHVILLE, no matter what, I think everyone should at least respect how competitive players decide to lay out their rules. I see casuals sometimes complain about stage bans and whatnot, or at least make fun of it, And honestly, I think that's just a little bit pathetic. Let people play how they wanna, Especially if you don't intend on participating yourself. Regardless of that, I do wish Hazards On was the legal variant. It provides a fun obstacle that makes the match just a bit more interesting. And I asked on Twitter, and there's some mixed answers on why it's illegal, but a big reason I've seen is that in order to toggle hazards on and off, you have to go all the way back and change the rules. Smash still has to add a toggle for this on the stage menu, so I guess because if you want to toggle this option you have to backtrack to the rules section, they just decided to not bother. Personally, I don't feel like it's too much of a backtrack, but I can at least understand this decision. I really think they should add that toggle feature to Smash, it only makes sense, but I guess I can save that type of complaint for a different video. But that's the competitive side of Smashville. It's simple, but just very barely different and a little bit more aggressive than usual. That's exactly what I'd like from a stage. Now, from a casual perspective, where there's items going everywhere and usually more than 2 people fighting each other, you might think that Smashville is a bit lame, compared to stages like Gamer or PictoChat or Norfair or whatever. I don't disagree, but I still think Smashville provides something really important, and is why when I used to play casual more often, it was always on my rotation. Now, granted, I think this might be more specific to me in my playstyle, but when I play casually with items and nonsense everywhere, I'm pretty interested in trying to get cool stuff to happen. Like this pretty cool screw attack combo into top deck magic burst here. That's the good stuff. And if you know my channel and history well enough, you might remember those few years I did item combos. You know, crazy and practical combos in training mode featuring, items. Because of this, I got a really good understanding for not just how items function, but how they can also be applied. I might also make a video regarding that in the future. Basically what I'm saying is I like to play around with the items that spawn in a pretty unique way. Try to get some neat combos or interactions or anything like that. So for a stage like Smashville where there's not too much craziness going on from the stage itself, this gives a lot more breathing room to focus on the item play. Sure, it's not what I always want, but it's certainly a great experience anytime it happens. Another big aspect though is, again, the stage's size. It's just a bit smaller than most other stages. Again, this forces a more aggressive way to play, which, contrary to how you might think about me, is exactly how I like to play video games. Usually, at least. I like to be aggressive, go in and get stuff done. If I die, I die. I'll just respawn, you know? If I need to be patient, I will, but generally I have more fun with really risky behavior and whatnot. So Smashville inherently supports and even encourages this playstyle with its smaller size. Not to mention, with crazy items everywhere and potentially 4 players present, things can get a bit chaotic. And as always, the moving platform and the balloon and all that lovely stuff just adds a small layer of complexity and variance to the experience. Nothing to really get in your face, but enough to allow for some bigger thinking and the occasional funny thing. So for casuals, it's usually tied with my favorite stage, alongside maybe Gamer or Mario Kart 8 or something. And then we get to the aesthetics and references and such. There is a lot for me to talk about here, mostly because this is a topic that doesn't really get covered by many channels or even just normal people in conversation. A lot of the stages in this game look great. Perhaps not breathtaking 4K, the graphics warrant the fact that this is just a driving simulator type of good looking, but they're usually really stylistic and at least easy on the eyes. Smashville is no exception by any means. On its own, it looks nice. It's got the Animal Crossing vibe and textures and all that. Animal Crossing was never a visually astonishing game, but it just felt nice. And that's all I really need to say. It's nice, recognizable, and charming. But the big kicker for this stage isn't necessarily how it looks, but how it changes. Loyal to the usual Animal Crossing fashion, the stage echoes your time of day. I recorded this part at around 5:12 PM, which is evening, I guess. But overall, if you're playing early in the morning at like 6 AM, the stage will be in its dawn form, which honestly looks really nice. I wish I was more of a morning person. This is probably the second rarest form of the stage, and for some people the rarest form, since you need to be playing at like the morning. It's probably not that uncommon to see for some people, but again, I am not a morning person. Then you've got your normal daytime section, which is pretty common to see, perhaps not as common as the evening and night variants, I don't know. So yeah, again you've got dusk, as we saw before, and then you got nighttime. The shadow cast by the platform is also reflected by the time of day. Here we see that the shadow is going from the left of the platform, meaning that the source of light, the sun, is coming from the right side of the screen, which we can naturally assume is east. During daytime, the shadow is right below the platform, since the sun would be directly above it. And in the evening, the shadow is on the right side of the platform, meaning the sun is setting in the west, which I thought was just a really nice detail. Only 4 variants in total really, but the fact that this is tied to your internal clock really helps relate it to real life in a fun way. Where if you decide to play early in the morning, you get to see this variant of Smashville that a lot of people probably don't see. But you could also just change your internal clock's date and time to manipulate the stage that way, which is what I did to get footage for this video. What, did you actually think I woke up at 6 AM to record footage? So yeah, overall this is all just really nice, and all that it's missing is seasonal changes, which would be really cool, but beggars can't be choosers, On top of this, on Saturday nights from 8 PM to midnight, Keckothedragon will be present, which is loyal to how he works in Animal Crossing. It's just a bunch of very small details that spread throughout the week and time of day that just really make this stage stand out. Not to mention the wide variety of villagers that can appear in the background, or I guess mid-ground of the stage. There's a pretty good variety to choose from, and they like to make some pretty funny expressions too. And as someone who's a sucker for these types of small little changes to spice things up, I think this is just a really nice feature. Slight tangent, but I actually got kinda curious if the stage's time would actually change in the middle of a match. This is something I've never actually experienced before since matches don't usually last that long, so I started a match up at around 6:30 PM, which is why it's sunset in the game, and it just left the game there for a while. Not too long later, I noticed that the town square's clock back there actually changes with the match. Here now it says 6:43, which is when I started recording this new clip. I knew that it depicted the game's current time, but I guess I never really registered the fact that it changes during the match too. So if the clock changes during a match, perhaps the lighting of the stage should too. But it doesn't. It's currently 10 PM here, and the time is still dusk, which, trust me, is not what it should be. If I then leave the match and go immediately back, it's now night. I guess that would have been more appropriate for a random facts video, but hey, that's just the nature of this channel. All of my videos are insanely interesting and awesome, and you're always missing out by not watching a video. Subscribe now, please. Anyhow, in terms of references, I just really like Animal Crossing. Or at least I used to? This stage represents those early Animal Crossing titles. I think it's either for the original game for the GameCube, or Wild World, but perhaps a little bit of both. While City Folk was my actual first Animal Crossing game, this isn't too awfully different, and I did play Wild World sometimes anyways. So in general, this stage and Town & City both represents that general era of Animal Crossing, where I just played it on my own in a way that I enjoyed it, and it was awesome. I don't even know what possessed me to buy the game. I think I just saw animals on the cover and thought that was epic. But this game changed a few aspects of my life. I played it for hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 hours, just going around and enjoying life. Catching bugs and fish was my favorite thing to do. It's because of this game that I had an entire era of my childhood where I just loved to fish and was super fascinated by bugs and such. This has changed in recent times. Animal Crossing New Horizons was something I used to be extremely excited for. I even made a whole video about it on my channel when it released. But after that I played it for like 2 weeks and then I just stopped. I think the reason why is because nowadays when I play a game I just sort of like to supplement that with online social interaction. You know, people talking about the game, sharing their opinions, stuff like that. That's just what I do now, that's just how I experience games. I think Animal Crossing was an experience best left almost entirely on my own. Something that really destroyed my motivation for this game was just the general vitriol regarding the whole time travel thing. For those of you who aren't really aware, just like how you can change your Switch's clock to change the time in SMASHVILLE, you can do the same thing to manipulate the time and date of your Animal Crossing game. This is how I used to play the game. Time traveling, as they call it. I don't know about y'all, but for me personally, when I play a game, I like to play a game. Sure, I totally see the merit in treating Animal Crossing like an actual sort of life experience, where you do daily chores and have to schedule yourself and whatnot. But for me, I want to catch all the fish and bugs, experience all the events and whatnot at my own pace, for my own reasons, whenever I want to play the game. That's how I had fun, that's how I have fun playing games in general. And yet there seemed to be this gigantic and widespread belief that this way of playing the game is wrong, bad, other negative words. Even people I really respect share this opinion. And obviously it's fine to not enjoy playing it in this way, just like how I don't prefer the more vanilla way of playing Animal Crossing, but people were getting their panties in a fabled Gordian knot about the whole thing. This combined with the inherent, spoiler aspect of going into the future, and seeing content that others might have had to wait months to unlock, and this whole thing was just not a great social media experience. Which I guess should have been expected because it's social media, but I don't know. It just totally killed my motivation for the game, for me personally, and I just opted to keep playing things like TF2 or Smash or Minecraft or whatever. I think going into the future I'm going to try and not supplement a gaming experience with social media because social media is awful. That's what I'm doing for Stardew Valley right now, I just got into it. Granted, the game isn't really new anymore, so there's not much of a social media presence, but you know. Anyways, that was a bit of a negative rant, I apologize for that. But I don't know, it's just something I wanted to get off my chest there, because that whole thing really bummed me out. So this is why I have good thoughts and memories about SMASHVILLE and Town & City and such. Perhaps even more so now than before. It's like these are the last general games of this series I was able to really enjoy. Actually, I did enjoy New Leaf as well, which is what Tortimer Island is based around, but Tortimer Island as a stage kinda sucks, in my opinion, so whatever. Now you might be wondering, what about Town & City? I've been mentioning it a few times this video in relation to SMASHVILLE. and certainly they are plenty similar in some areas. But generally I think as a stage, Smashville is just my preference. I definitely still really enjoyed Town City, but the stage itself is a bit wider, making it less aggression heavy, which is, as you know, something I loved about Smashville. And I do like the platforms, but I feel like it just doesn't complement the stage quite as well. And there's a section where they just completely go away too. Don't get me wrong, the difference isn't huge. It's kind of like mint chocolate chip ice cream versus mint ice cream, if that's even a thing. It's probably a thing. Like, both are terrific and generally what I want, but I'm probably going to choose the chocolate chip variant. Also, the title being Appreciating Smashville and Town and City, my favorite stages in Smash Ultimate, is a bit more of a mouthful and makes the thumbnail way less clean, so there you go. So overall, it's a great change of pace and does its job well in competitive Smash. It's a lovely stage for casual Smash if I just want to focus on item play or chaos, and aesthetically it's just very nice, both in how it functions and changes, and also what it represents for me on a personal level. There aren't many other stages in the game that check off all of these boxes for me, so I think this means I just have to put it as my favorite stage in Smash overall. Oh, and I guess I should talk about the music too. I don't know, the Animal Crossing representation in the soundtrack isn't bad. I really enjoy a few songs, but I don't listen to the music when I play this game because I always have it turned off because that's what you have to do when you record Smash footage for a video. Also, I don't really love a lot of Smash remixes, but I won't touch on that topic. I really like Animal Crossing music in general though, so if that counts for something, yeah. Anyhow, that'll be it for today's video. I'd like to thank my ravishing patrons Nestor Franco, Sashanks, Skully, Burbo, Hobo King Niklz, Raighne, TheRealFxdeYT, BG, Dameplay, Feurolant, blizwald, Glaceon, Jigs, Keckothedragon, Narf2043, RustyRantsYT, Skye, and Stan LOONA. Stan LOONA. If you're a fan of TF2, this video might seem slightly reminiscent of that one Uncle Dane video he made about Dust Bowl, but that's just a coincidence. I started playing this video months ago. And I do really like this style of video though, it's to sort of balance out more of the high effort analysis type videos, and I hope y'all do too. And if you're a fan of my TF2 side channel, you might be wondering where my upload schedule went. Well, I never had one, but it's definitely been a hot minute since my last video, huh? Well, at least this is how it is when I'm recording this video, but I might try to get a new video out, even possibly around the time this video gets uploaded. Maybe before, maybe just a little bit after. Sorry about the wait on that front. I'll have a whole rant at the end of that video about where I've been, maybe, if I feel like it. But yeah, that's that. And thanks again to ProtonMail for sponsoring today's video. Opportunities like these really help me out. Sign up link is in the description. So keep up the good work, stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.